Have you ever seen a species or a habitat bounce back? I think we all have. We have some success stories. Did you know that there's a law that has facilitated those bounce backs? And that law is currently being eroded, reinterpreted, and rewired for its unintended purposes. Hey everybody, we're here along Bass Creek going up, doing a little hike and a little talk. So this is the revitalization of the Mountain Misfits podcast. And this one, we're not interviewing anybody. I'm not very good at talking head rants, or maybe I am, who knows. But we're gonna talk about something today that I think is vitally important. This is not a neutral episode. I don't have room or tolerance for middle of the ground, let alone on the wrong side of the fence. This podcast is hopefully about creating action, thought, and maybe even a little bit of sadness. I think we need that now. You know, sadness can motivate us to do something. Anger can motivate us to do something. Thought can motivate us to do something. But we've seen these habitats and these species numbers shrink within our very short human lifetimes. And now we have an administration that abhors the idea of conservation and restoration and rewilding. Forget about that. But the current Trump administration has proposed 4 rule changes to the Endangered Species Act that would roll it back to the 2009 rules of the previous Trump administration. Now, these rules just shrink. They rewired the entire Endangered Species Act, taking any sort of actual value out of it and turning over public lands and wildlife and habitat to commercial interests. And that's vitally important that they are emphasizing commercial interest over the earth we actually live on. I mean, they're literally a death cult. They don't care. You know, if they can erode the entire ecosystem to make a dollar, they're all for it. Endangered Species Act. And the purpose of the Endangered Species Act, in a moment of clarity in this country, is to preserve the ecosystems, habitats, and threatened and endangered species. So the idea is that we can preserve the habitat to preserve the species. Now, this act has been amazingly effective, to the tune of, if a species is listed by the Endangered Species Act either as threatened or endangered, we have a 99% success rate at avoiding extinction. So it's a wonderfully effective act for preserving habitats and organisms. So, you know, we're talking about the Endangered Species Act, and there's a couple key terms that we have to understand. So the first one is, what does endangered means? Endangered means that a species is at risk of extinction within the foreseeable future. So it's an imminent danger of becoming extinct through human behaviors and actions. That's key. All right, so what's threatened? A threatened species is a species that is within the foreseeable future likely to become endangered. So think of it as, you know, healthy species population to threatened to endangered. The third key term is critical habitat. And what is critical habitat? That is the habitat that either a threatened or endangered species depends on. So the thinking is, if you can identify a species in trouble, either threatened or endangered, and then recognize its habitat, you can preserve that habitat, thereby preserving the species. Pretty simple concept. So what these rule changes are, and we'll go into specifics about that shit, because it's largely from the Orange Menace and his cohorts. But the ESA is literally the emergency room for ecosystems in this country. And what they want to do is they want to strip away the triage while the ambulance is still on the way to the ER. So what the Department of Interior has done is they proposed 4 rule changes, and within that proposed change is a 30-day comment period. Now, the comment period is our opportunity to write in and voice our opinion. Now, I think it's important that we do that so that it's on the record what the vast public opinion, what the constituents were telling their representatives and politicians. However, we all know that this administration is just going to run right over that. They don't give a shit whether we want it or don't want it, what is valuable, what is invaluable. They just don't care. So I don't care whether you fish, hunt, are a guide, or a rancher. You live in a city and you hardly ever get outside. This is critically important to our lives. We live within these ecosystems as well. So killing those ecosystems is killing us just a little bit. So we have this really important period to weigh in and make our voices heard, even if they're gonna be ignored, which is weird to say. Let's rewind that shit. Let's just say, let's get our voices on the record so later we can roll this shit back and fix the problem once this regime is out. So as we continue to go through Bass Creek here, you can see the water's a little low and there's a little skiff of snow on the ground, but it's good just to get out, even during this time of year. Well, especially during this time of year, or any time of the year, but who the hell am I kidding? But let's go into like some deep dives on what's going on with this. So the first thing is, the first rule change is they want to remove the blanket rule. What is the blanket rule? So during the Biden administration, they came up with the blanket rule, which states that if a species is listed as threatened, it will get the same plan as if it was endangered. So it's a blanket plan to preserve the species and preserve the critical habitat. So it's a blanket rule. What the current regime wants to do is they're going to remove the blanket rule and make it species-specific conservation rules. Now here's why they want to do it, because it just allows them to slow roll everything. Just halt it altogether. In fact, that's kind of the stated purpose of all this, is to halt any planning for threatened and endangered species or raising a threatened species to endangered status if it's warranted. So, basically, the death cult is like an ostrich. They just want to stick their head in the stand, make a shit ton of money, and kick the can down the road when we're quickly. I think you have to be an idiot not to know this. But our environment is changing so rapidly and to the detriment of every living creature on this planet. The change is too rapid, whether that's climate change, habitat destruction, habitat alterations, all these things. Ooh, all right. Now we're going up the first real hill. We'll see how much I can breathe and talk at the same time. But the idea of thinking about the blanket rule is, if your house is on fire, you don't debate what brand of hose to bring, you turn on the water. And that is the proper response. If you know the house is on fire, that species is imperiled, turn on the water, get the protections going, and save what is left before it's too late. So how does this relate to us in Montana? You know, there are species that are in the pipeline. The plans, the planning, the research is getting to a point of implementation. And this includes things like monarch butterflies. You know, they're in the midst of a species protection plan that will be halted. Wolverine, that's a great one. They want to halt any sort of ESA protections for wolverine immediately. Why? Wolverines live in the timber. And what do these fuckers want? They want that timber. They want it now, and they want it cheap. The wolverine is going to get in the way. So their solution, instead of an actual plan, a way to move forward that protects, enhances, and meets human needs, is, hey, fuck the wolverine. That's exactly what they want to do. They're, you know, I said it once, and I know that the Crime Pays, Botany Doesn't podcast, Joey says all the time, and he's absolutely right. It's a fucking death cult. You know, they're just gonna steam headlong into species extinction without a thought or a care. And that's kind of miserable. But as I sit here, try to catch my breath, hopefully sooner or later during this walk and talk, we'll cut some tracks of some sort. That would be fun. I'm starting to doubt we will, but what the hell? It could happen. Let's go deep dive number 2. The second proposed rule changes are changing the definitions and the very nuance of words and what is meant by critical habitat. So by rolling everything back to the Orange Metis version 1 plan, the terms you have to really look for that are sneaky as fuck, they know exactly what they're doing on this, is they're going to change the definition of foreseeable future. They're going to eliminate the idea of unoccupied habitat. This is key. If we're looking to restore a species population, they've largely been extirpated from critical habitat. Well, what these clowns, the little game they're going to play, is say, hey, look, that species isn't there right now, even though it might have been or could be. They're going to say very easily, hey, look, that habitat is unoccupied. So therefore, it's not critical. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. So foreseeable future gets extended way out, so it's not important. They change the idea of unoccupied habitat to not, what's the words I'm looking for? That unoccupied habitat is not valid as critical habitat. In our climate-driven century that includes, you know, wildly vacillating changes in the climate, rampant industrial habitat destruction, bush hunting, all of these things, we don't have time for the future. It's very, very short. We are just on the cusp of being able to go to save what is left. Fuck, who even knows? Maybe even enhance it, improve it, make it sustainable again. Or we're about ready to go over the waterfall. And if we go over that waterfall, it's probably going to be too late. So do we have 3 years of what's going on? Can we recover from it? I think it's inevitable. We won't be able to stop it. He will not be impeached. Put that out of your mind. This administration ain't going anywhere for for at least 3 years, even if they allow elections, which, if you ask me, they're working very hard to take away voting rights, and they're working very hard to start shutting down elections, and we're going to see that ramp up. Oh, second hill. Can you believe it? This one's a good one. It's like going up a flight of stairs. Just one rock after the next. Now, some of these zones along Bass Creek, just to the side, we're going to talk about later in another video about the Bitterroot Malonite zone, which we're in right now, which is a super cool story. So that's coming up, not today. We're going to stick on the rant for today. Ooh. Hey, we're making up the trail. We're doing all right. So, deep dive number 3. In my gloves, I couldn't do a 3. That was fucked. Anyways, deep dive number 3. They're going to add to the evaluation of critical habitat economic value / impact. Now you see where we're going with this one. Critical habitat should be determined for its own sake. Either it is or it isn't to a particular species or a suite of species. It should really be defined by the needs of the species. This is not what they want to do. They've put in this economic impact provision into the rule. And what this means is when they're evaluating critical habitat, the impact on industry and its potential value to industry are included in the decision. So this means that any critical habitat, they can go, that could be logged, therefore the logging is more valuable than its value as critical habitat under the Endangered Species Act. This is the complete erosion to the base of the ESA. So think about it, when you're preserving species, habitats first. You eliminate any opportunity to preserve critical habitat, the rest of the ESA falls apart. And the death cult hates the ESA. They've always hated the ESA. And now they're looking at really sneaky ways of making it go away in favor of their oligarch buddies. You know, they want billionaires to be billionaires, us to be poor, arguing amongst ourselves, while they cash in on our labor, on our public lands. Woo, just about took a digger on the ice there. Our public lands and our futures. That all that is to them is an opportunity to make money and gather power. They're pricing critical habitat as if it were a widget and an economic decision, rather than understanding it is the goddamn operating system of the living world, the real world in which we live. They're trying to create this artificial world for themselves. All right, deep dive number 4. I can do 4 with the glove this time. Deep dive number 4 is they're changing the idea of the offset rules. So what this means is the definitions of provisional and certain in the foreseeable future. They're rewording those definitions to take all the teeth out of them. Pacific Wren just flew across. That's pretty awesome. They're taking all the definitions and changing them, like I said, to weaken them, to take the teeth out of them, so that those terms become industry and their philosophy centric. So extraction becomes much more valuable under the ESA. They're literally taking the ESA and turning it into a mechanism for furthering extractive industries and what's happening to our natural world, the destruction of it. I keep saying natural world. It's not natural, it's the real fucking world. Everything that's human is the artificial world. The real world is this, what surrounds us. This has so much more value than a highway or a building. You know, I understand we need highways and buildings, but I also understand we need this. You know, I don't know if I believe in a soul, but I think there's something humanly innate that requires living things, that requires interaction with living things. And when we don't have that, our lives are decreased in value. We lose just a little bit of ourselves. Maybe not even a little bit. For some of us, it's everything. We lose everything about ourselves. What you have to think about is the death cult is proceeding not with a bang. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And they're just a road. It's just a word that keeps coming to my mind as they're looking just to slowly erode these protections. And every time they do, the next generation comes in and they have a new baseline, right? So think about this. If you came into these woods, up this mountain in Bass Creek, if you came to this place in 1880, what would you have seen? How many birds? How much wildlife? You know, what would the state of this place be? And then think about that generation's baseline for experience of the world. Well, we extract a little bit. We take a little from here. You know, we convert this into farmland or goddamn just a tree farm. The next generation, they have a new baseline. And it repeats and it repeats. We're just eroding and establishing a new baseline for what is normal and what is natural. So, you know, people my age, which is pretty much middle of the path, you know, our baseline, let's say it's here. The next generations, their baseline is already here. They're doing everything they can to reduce their experience of the natural world. Because when you experience the natural world, for Christ's sake, you value it. It becomes monumentally important to you. And it's okay. I think it's a great spot to be selfish. It's important to you. If it's important to us, then we make it important to the species and habitat. So selfishness, and mine, yours, everyone who gives a shit, that selfishness is absolutely vital. We have to be selfish. We want to preserve for us. That's fine, because in the long run, that serves the noble cause. Their selfishness serves no noble cause. It hurts everything and everybody. And it's impossible to get around that. Nor do they even want to get around that. I think in large part, they love causing pain. The oligarchs, the mega rich, the Trump administration types, they love seeing things hurt. They love seeing people hurt, which is why we get that stupid, dumbass owning the libs shit. You know, that's what they're into. They don't care what the outcome is as long as they win and they hurt something or somebody else. It's a terrible philosophy, and it's guised underneath, you know, economic prosperity. That's under the guise of, and I hate to say this, a lot of born-again Christianity. They bought hook, line, and sinker to this, and why would they care? You know, they're going to the next fucking world, so they think they're going to get raptured into heaven. What if that isn't true? What if this is our one shot? This is our one shot to be, you know, a little collection of atoms within the universe that has the entirely great and precious privilege of experiencing itself. We're allowed to experience this. Just this. This is without change, without a human footprint. This is important. This is why you need to come experience it and take those experiences with you. Do your best not to alter the habitat. Do your best to leave no trace, all those sort of principles. Do your best to preserve critical habitat. Do your best to recognize species that are in trouble because of human activities. That's what we can do. So that's why it's so important to make your voice heard during this comment period. Now, in the description of this podcast, I'm going to include a template that might get you just a healthy start on your comment. If not, write one from your own heart. I think that's even more impactful. But we also have to recognize we're throwing drops in an ocean of bullshit. Let's understand, during the comment period, our voices are going into a big round file. However, that round file, legally, now we know how this administration hates anything legal, has to be maintained and preserved. And perhaps when this phase is over, and god damn, let's hope it has a point where it's over, that we're able to say, look, this is what we said, this is how we still feel, let's preserve, let's restore, let's rewild what we can, and create a better real world. We're the only species that has the ability to recognize this. And we are selfishly not seeing our responsibility as true stewards. I always say they because they are they. They take that idea of stewardship and goddamn do they turn it. They turn it into this idea that it means consumption. And I don't think stewardship means consumption. Does it mean recognizable, thoughtful, planned use and preservation at the same time? Yes, of course. We have to maintain ourselves as a species. Get it. I get it. But we're going beyond that. We're going on to like species dominance. The idea is that, the human tumor. Well, yeah, we are a human tumor. We have no idea of bounds, stopping every other cell in the body. A heart cell, never, as I wipe snot, a heart cell knows to never go beyond being just a heart muscle cell. That's what it does. That's its function, and that's its boundaries. A tumor has no boundaries. The idea is continual and exponential growth. And that's what's embodied in our current economic system, in our current view of human population, and on our current view of usage of wild lands. We're exponentially using it. Just more and more, and that curve gets steeper and steeper. And like I said before, I think we're definitely at a critical juncture. I'm not asking you to be a policy wonk. I'm asking you to be the kind of person who won't let the living world be quietly negotiated away. We protect what we love, we restore what we've damaged, and we do not backslide. That's my message. That's it in a nutshell. So, thanks for listening to my rant. I assure you, not all podcasts will be a walk and talk rant. But I also assure you that some will be, because they have to be. It's just part of the gig. So if you like this, please hit the little subscribe button, maybe hit the like button. Give me some feedback. Let me know if you're going to comment during the comment period on this. Hell, even send me what your comment was. Let's kind of turn ourselves into a little nucleus of a community that hopefully can help foster, grow, and initiate change. All right, everybody. Catch you later. I said I'd find you some tracks, and here's some tracks. Right there. Just some squirrel tracks.
And squirrel!
American red squirrel to be exact. And I fibbed. There's also some vole tracks right nearby.